So, I may sound sick because I am, although I don't think I sound that sick anymore. But I'm still gonna be coughing and stuff. So, I've been thinking about this for a while. I'm gonna be reading notes, kind of, because I had typed it up. And hopefully in the end I'll remember to talk about just looking around at different people around me in the homeless community and honestly being scared for these people, because these people are really already upset. The people who aren't playing the whole be buddy buddy with everybody and all that games, those people kind of have it a little bit worse, because one of the things about not being the usual desperate person and trying to like play all these games with people, like the whole boyfriend girlfriend thing and the fake friend stuff, and even like being willing to, I don't know, just hang out with people that you don't really have anything in common with or that aren't really safe for you just to say you have somebody. I'm one of those people, and honestly, what I see with other people like that is that they're kind of the most at risk, especially for like unaliving themselves and stuff, because the people who do play those types of games are typically, I'm not going to act like they're not also upset and stuff, but they're definitely, I don't know, I guess I could say happier, and like the struggle is a little less bad for them. And I mean, I'm not really talking about people who are hanging out with like people who are really, really into some mess. I'm not talking about that. I know like when I was in Cali, and I always talk about these areas where the white addict projection really comes from, which of course isn't just Cali, it's other places like that. But I know when I was in Cali, like trying to be buddy buddy with everybody like meant something totally different. Not that the situations were always like horrendous, but it meant like doing fatty and different stuff like that. That's not what I'm talking about now, but it's still not good either. And I'm not even just talking about being buddy buddy with other homeless people. In fact, for the boyfriend girlfriend thing, that typically would mean, I mean, not always, but oftentimes people want to play that game with somebody that actually has a place for them to stay. That's really what that's usually about. And that's a really common thing that like guys do. And there's a lot I could say about that. But anyway, hopefully I'll remember to talk about that and how I really just worry about a lot of the people around me, really all of them, because it's like, I mean, the likelihood of these people being stuck out here, passing away out here, unaliving themselves and different things like that, going to jail for no reason. Whenever Ice Cube comes around to where I'm at now, or they really start like doing their martial law rounds everywhere, them hurting people and all that stuff, I worry about that. And then the other thing I want to hopefully remember to talk about was, I'm trying to remember what the other thing was. Oh yeah, like how just like being the unpaid therapist, and still to this day random people like to tell me different things about them, because people always say that I give off a humble vibe and they feel like they can just tell me anything and talk to me about whatever, and I won't like judge them or accuse them of lying about their life. And it's really funny though, because realistically everybody kind of has the same story. And like, especially when it comes to ending up out here, it's like the common toxic family system, obviously, because homelessness is a family issue. Homelessness wouldn't be a thing if it wasn't for family system issues. Like, all the other stuff is irrelevant. I know, like, with what's going on now, there's a dollar falling, and people who have been just about rich or middle class or upper middle class are just holding on like their entire life are now going to become poor and homeless and different things like that for the first time ever. People who never thought that they would be in that situation. I know that's happening and that's going to get worse, but I mean, even that could really go back to like family system issues, but that's not the typical situation. Most people become homeless in quote unquote childhood and they just get stuck. So I'm not really talking about the side things too much, but what was I saying? Anywho, I don't even, oh yeah, I was gonna like kind of talk about how it's just a similar story for everybody pretty much. I don't know what to say about that. But anywho, like, people will always tell me, I think my blood sugar's dropping. People always tell me about, like, them wanting to unalive themselves. And I mention all the time, because there's one person that really comes to mind with this, like, people telling me that I'm a quote-unquote child, whatever that really means, and that they're grown, but then they feel the need to still tell me all their different little situations. And then when I tell them about like what not to do, because that's the one thing I can tell people about what not to do and what to not do to avoid making things worse. When I do that, then they tell me, well, you're a quote unquote child, so how are you going to tell me? And then one of the people that comes to mind with that, I remember they even always said that, like, they're always talking about unaliving themselves and driving off a cliff, but I'm supposed to be the one that holds myself together. Not that they said it like that, but, like, I'm trying to figure out how to put it. Pretty much, like, people see me as a strong person who's able to not be desperate and not do the whole run off with some chomo or just do the boyfriend, whatever in the world. People see me as a person who's stronger and is able to avoid that, and so they feel like I'm supposed to always hold myself together and never feel anything. Not that I feel a lot of emotion anyways, but I'm supposed to never be upset, at least overtly, and I'm supposed to like hold everybody else up. And what else with that, like, I can never be the one to unalive myself, and if I did, it would be surprising, because I'm supposed to be the person talking everybody else out of unaliving themselves. Hopefully that was a good example. But anywho, I think I can get to the point now. In fact, I think I probably spent so long talking about those two things that I may not have to go over it again. But anywho, so in my notes I wrote, I've spent so much time trying to be therapist, mom, save a hoe for everyone else. I left myself behind and am developmentally delayed, which, I mean, that was going to happen anyways, but revolving around the fact that most people raise themselves. There was something I was supposed to say there, because, like, the notes aren't in full. They were, like, the thoughts, and I'm supposed to remember what else to say, but I usually do, but, like, I know I'm supposed to say something here, but I don't remember what it is. I think, let me just keep reading because I don't know. But I feel I left myself behind for everyone else, even till this day. I don't really remember what I was supposed to say there. Like, my sister is now the same age I was when I first started living outside full-time / escaped. I couldn't imagine her being out here, although I know I've always understood more than most grown people do. Because, like, I understand just different things to try to avoid that'll make things worse. And most grown people don't and never will. Although one thing that I've always said, though, is that it's not even just about, like, people not understanding or not knowing something. Most people really don't care. It's a mix of both. And I get why, because they know that at the end of the day, their life is probably going to be whatever anyways. And, like, it's so hard to avoid certain things because it's like you lose your mind regardless. It's a risk regardless. If you stay by yourself and you know that, like, the only people that'll really give you the time of day is like some, I don't know, chomo or something, but you decide to be the person that doesn't do the whole run off with a chomo thing to get a sense of somebody giving a crap about you, because they're the only people that'll really give you the time of day. If you don't do that, you're going to lose your mind from loneliness and become schizo. But if you do that, you're going to lose your mind and become schizo either way. Probably. Especially if you do it. And then it's like, I I think people just know that they really don't have options and things are going to be horrible regardless, so they just do things anyways, and they just like make the same mistakes as everybody else because it's really hard to not do, it's hard to avoid. It's going to be a lot of suffering if you don't do it, and it's almost like it doesn't really matter anyways. That's how I've always felt about it since I was really young. Anywho, where am I? Where am I? Although I know I've always, okay, I already read that. But I think it's just like how I get more upset and defensive when people hurt others than I ever would when they do the same to me. This can even go back, because I use this example pretty often, or at least I did in the past. I haven't mentioned it in a while, but this could even go into like the thing where when people are getting essayed, they'll like, if they know that their abuser comes in the room to essay them, like at whatever time or just in general, I guess, they'll lay on the edge of the bed so that way the abuser will just essay them instead of their sibling because they're easier to get to first. That's a really common story of like people hiding their siblings and while they calm the abuser down, or them just laying on the edge of the bed and letting their sibling or their siblings lay on the inside or near the wall on the other side or whatever. So like even feeling like I can handle things more than another person could, so like I'd rather for somebody to do something to me than for them to do it to somebody else. But then it's still kind of the thought like, how much more could I really take before like I completely split and snap? There's also that thought. But anywho, that's what it makes me think about. Seeing other people my age and even older in certain situations and weirdly seeing them as quote-unquote babies, yet I could never and have never seen myself that way, because even with all the ageism that I still experience till this day, I've never... Ooh, no, I'm screwing this up. I don't know how to put it, but like I talk about all the time with the whole street kids aren't seen as kids. You're a kid until... how sometimes the whole you're a child and you're grown can be used interchangeably in certain situations to try to blame you and different stuff like that. I talk about that all the time. I'm trying to get this to come out right. How do I put this? Yet I can never see myself that way, because even with all the ageism, I've never been allowed to, because I am and have always been grown-ified, quote unquote. And I talk about like, especially now, like how it, like when you visibly, okay, wait a minute, even though in your abuse situation you obviously didn't have parents and you were up for grabs then, when you become a street kid, you're also visibly like on your own and visibly up for grabs, and you visibly don't have parents. And if you don't have parents and people know you don't, then you're not seen as a kid. Just like when you're in foster care, all foster kids know that they're not kids because they don't have parents, or they have cognitive dissonance. They're lying to themselves about it. But if you're not somebody's kid, you're not a kid, pretty much. That's how it is. And so there's a lot of stuff with it. Like I even talk about, even recently, the whole thing with people, especially where I am now in the South, assuming that I'm like 38, and the youngest people assume I am is like 28, but often people assume I'm in my late 30s, which is really interesting. But there's that side. But even when people don't assume wild things like that, like you're not a kid if you don't have parents. And then there's also the sexual predator side. And I always mention, like even at 12, like when the sexual predators approach you, well, I don't know, I can't speak for anybody else really, but at least for me, what I've experienced is I always have to be the grown woman, but they're the, this is coming out how I wanted to, they're the young man, or the what else did they say? They're the young man or the boy, even though they're 55 years old and stuff like that. Like specifically at 16, there was a situation like that, which this is really common, where this dude who was 53 in a wheelchair, he approached me on how I'm the grown woman and he's the young man. No, he was the boy. It was another situation where the person was a young man who was also 50. And yeah, that's how it goes pretty much. And it's really common for sexual predators to try to make you feel like you're infantilizing yourself, which I'm going to go into if I remember. But I even mention pretty often that I didn't realize I was a kid till very recently, and that's something else that's also like gotten to me, because like now I have these fears, like, am I gonna end up being like Michael Jackson or something, and I'm gonna like have this this amusement park island where like I had the 5-year-olds having sleepovers with me because I never got to like, I mean, most people raise themselves so they don't get to have this fake quote-unquote childhood stereotype that people push that isn't real for most people. It's honestly really stupid, but it's like, am I gonna be like that? Like, are people gonna like, I even remember when I was 12, which I think about this pretty often now, when this girl told me when I'm elderly I'm gonna like have a van and I'm gonna be like luring kids into my van with candy and stuff, and it's like, I really hope that's not how things are gonna go, but I don't know, it all just makes me worry. Maybe it's like an extreme, but shoot. Anywho, where was I at with that? But yeah, so it's like, I'm still not allowed to see myself like how I really should be able to. Especially with the street kid side. Like, I was being told that I needed to get my SHIT together and that I was almost 20 and 35 since I was 10 and stuff. But of course, there's also still the common things that abusive people like, especially ones with certain backgrounds where they do the whole you're a child thing. It's really weird how it's interchangeable. And it's funny because you become a man or woman at 13 or 16. Like, as I always say, a child would really be like under 8 or 10 at the least. But people are really weird. But either way, it's just really interesting. Like, if you want to be adopted and you're a street kid, certain people make you feel some type of way about that. Wait a minute. They'll try to make you feel some type of way about that no matter how old you are, because, well, you're on your own, so you're pretty much grown. Even though people really, wait a minute, people really never stop needing like a family and support. But I mean, of course, like, as we all realize, well, I don't know, if you like do research on CPTSD and stuff, you probably learned really, really young that like a lot of this like family hopes and dreams and wishes is magical thinking, and it's not realistic. But still, the people never don't need a family. But when you're a street kid, people try to make you feel like you're infantilizing yourself for like wanting that. And it's weird because it's like, I know that people really don't give a crap about anybody or kids, but like you are often gonna wonder like, why are other kids but I'm not a kid? Why are people's kids who are even decades older than you or years older than you or the same age as you, why are they kids but you're not? It does make you definitely wonder. And it's like seeing myself how I should be and should have always been able to see myself now, or trying to. It just makes me feel like I'm just infantilizing myself, because that's how I'm made to feel really often by certain people, especially sexual predators. And what else am I going to say with that? There's something I'm forgetting. Crap, hold up. It's like, even just like using the term kid, I just feel like guilty for even saying it. And there's a lot of stuff with that, but it's definitely really weird. But like I said, I spent so much time trying to be this mommy, therapist, savior to everybody else around me, especially in my abuse situation before escaping. Like, of course, I'm not going to be able to actually see myself how I should be able to until getting out here. But of course, now that I'm a street kid, there's going to be issues with that because the whole street kids aren't seeing this kids thing. So now, like, even though this is the perfect time to be able to just see myself as like not this mommy therapist, now I'm kind of guilt tripped and I'm pretty much guilt tripped by some people for like trying to actually take a back. I don't even know how to put it. Take a back seat, I guess I could say, and like actually just focus on myself instead of trying to focus on myself and raising myself and being the mommy therapist save-a-hoe. So the next note paragraph thing, because I stopped reading my notes a long time ago to go on that rant. Like, from grooming to really anything. Hopefully that made sense. Like, it even reminds me of when I met those French people and they had an 11-year-old daughter. She definitely is less exposed to many things than even people years younger than her often are. So very quote-unquote innocent by stereotypes. I know this is going to sound kind of weird. I really don't want it to sound weird. Not that I really care that much, but hopefully people just get what I'm trying to say. Like, thinking about people that age that I know, or even like myself when I was 11 and even way younger than that. Although like I definitely had the generational marine spirits and like hypersexuality, so of course that's going to be different for me, but that's really common anyway. So it's like thinking about myself at 11 and even younger and other people that I knew at 11 and even younger compared to this girl is definitely like, she's definitely not as exposed to things that most people are. I feel even way younger than she is. So that's why I feel like she really meets the stereotype of being quote-unquote innocent, even as weird as it sounds, because I really don't want it to sound weird. But anywho, let me keep going. So to zoom past that, now my real sorry if this sounds weird, I just don't know how else to describe it, lol. As someone who knows many people who have been quote-unquote dating / getting essayed and chasing chomos due to trauma and neglect, that have been like quote-unquote dating 45-year-old men since 12 and stuff like that, I just don't... No, wait a minute, I'm just going way back. Hold up. I lost the line and now I'm like 3 sentences back up. As someone who... Okay, I already read and Jason, hold up, I already read that too. And there being no support in this world, or due to there being no support, that's why they have to chase chomos and stuff, since they were 12 and even younger. And then meeting that girl, the 11-year-old, the French people's daughter, it made me even more horrified to think about. It made it even more horrifying to think about when I'm someone who already has always known how horrifying it is and the spiritual effects and etc. of SA and even just running around having sex with people in general. Like, meeting that girl, and then, I know this is going to sound really, really weird, but it's like knowing people who were like quote-unquote dating 45-year-olds at 11 and 12, and then meeting this girl, and then it's like, if someone was to do that to her, that would just be like really, really horrible. It's like, the point of like this whole video is that, like, really thinking about other people and like putting people like my sister or like this girl, the French people's daughter, just like different people and in these situations, and thinking about it that way, even like people who are in bad situations, and like thinking about how it's gonna affect them, if this is even making sense. It's just really scary. Like even thinking about for like the past few weeks how I've been out here for like a couple years. Of course, like my family system isn't safe, so I wouldn't be safe around them. But it's like thinking about how my grandma would kick me out at 8 and stuff, but she would never ever let my dad spend a night on the streets. And I'm not really sure how old he is. He was 40 for like 10 years, so I don't even know, but he has to be at least like 54 by now, or 53. So something, I don't know, 49, something like that. But it's like thinking about how I've been out here for some years, but she would never even let him be out here for a night. That makes me thinking about if my sister was out here and how horrifying that would be, and how like I would never want her out here. That's also like really scary to think about. Of course my brother as well, like I don't even know how to put it. Like, hopefully this is making sense, but when you put other people in certain situations, it's scary. Like, even being scared for people my age and people who are younger than me, or even people who were the same age I was when I first ended up out here, and seeing, I don't know if this is coming out right, but like seeing people who were 16, 17, I wasn't out here at 14, but 14 as well, 13, 20, 25, like people like that, seeing those people out here getting kicked out for the first time, dumped out foster kids, just aged out, seeing those people out here is like scary, and I just like worry for them. Like, I know the high likelihood of them being stuck out here for the rest of their life, which, I mean, living outside isn't the bad part. It's the fact that you get treated like crap, and you're still getting further traumatized and getting treated like crap by society, so you eventually split into schizo due to like all the trauma and abuse and not having basic needs met. I really hope this is still recording. And it's like, that really scares me. And it's like, I really just hope this makes sense. But yeah, so where am I? As someone who knows many people, I've been read that. Oh my gosh. But I couldn't imagine someone doing that crap. I remember how I don't think I read that yet. I remember how horrified I got when she told me they were going to the cathedral for the first time ever. One of the worst, most notorious ones for SA, Holy Cross. Like, I remember I was talking to this boy. This was like a year plus ago. He was 15, trying to figure out how he was going to run away. He was being essayed by his grandma, who was essayed by the Catholic priest at Holy Cross, and it was a lot of stuff with that. So, anywho, and me hoping and praying nothing happens to her or her little sister when they went to the cathedral for the Christmas mass thing, whatever it's called. It also makes you think about a lady talking about how her friend got kicked out at 18, and how now that she's older and has a 19-year-old, she couldn't imagine having her daughter out in the streets at that age because she's a child. And then how like guys who were in their kids' lives but didn't have a father will say they cried once they had their first kid because they couldn't imagine not being in their kid's life. There's a lot I could say about that though, because there's a lot of parental alienation. But anywho, hopefully this was a good explanation. But it seems that like I see other people in the way people should see me, but also in the way that I'm not allowed to see myself and never have been allowed to see myself. Okay, no, I forgot one last thing. This is the last thing, hopefully. This also makes me think about something that people say really often when they've been essayed or they used to be like the Geronophile, which typically, I mean, like I say in my Geronophile and paraphilia playlist, they typically never stop being Geronophiles, but I'm not going to go into that again. But anywho, like they often say, they were like, I mean, kind of like I already mentioned, the 12-year-old who was quote-unquote dating 45-year-olds, or the 14-year-old who was dating a 16-year-old, or even like an 18, 19, 22-year-old who was dating someone who was 79, something like that. And they often talk about how, like, once they got older, even to the age of the older person that they were dating, they look back and they're like, yeah, that was horrible, and I was abused. Although me personally, I feel like maybe since I understand, like, these situations more than, like, other people do, I know, like, if I was in a situation like that, people would want to tell me that I'm being abused. But, like, I couldn't really, like, agree to something and then say, like, someone took advantage of me. And, like, I don't know. And I think that's probably why, if you have sexual addiction, you should definitely try to even avoid any situation where you may get a chance to fall into some bull crap, which I've talked about my own experiences with that before. Or more so, not even just a sexual addiction, but the Marine Kingdom, what was I calling it? The Marine Kingdom agent, and, like, set up with those types of situations. But me personally, I don't know. I feel like if I agree, I agree. I'm not speaking for anybody else, though, but either way, when they're like 79, they're now looking back and they're like, I couldn't imagine being with a 22-year-old or whatever in the world. Whatever the situation was, that's the point I'm getting at with that. So, like, yeah, I don't know what to say about that, but it makes you think about that as well, because that's pretty common. In fact, one of the people that I know, well, they've still been doing this type of stuff, because, like, you get addicted to it. People try to, like, tell stories halfway because they feel like it makes them look bad, or because they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But there's paraphilias and sexual addiction on both sides, as I always talk about. But anywho, I even know someone who, like, is starting to get, well, not starting to get older. I mean, you're always getting older. They're older than they were at that point in time when this stuff originally started, this coping mechanism that they were actually dragged into by another girl. And I always talk about in my paraphilia and dronophile videos how, like, it's really interesting how the girls who claim to be lesbians are always dating older men, and you can just see the trauma there. Like, they're never dating girls, or they're dating another girl and some chomo. But anywho, they're looking back and now they're like, it's actually crazy that I was getting into the situations I was getting into and doing the things that I was doing, and, like, now I look back and I'm like, why in the world? And I don't believe that, like, people should really be all blamey, because at the end of the day, everybody's just trying to survive. There's a lot I can say about that. So, like, I don't really think the person should be all blamey. They should stop doing this type of stuff, but most of these people, no matter how old they get, they're not going to, and then once they turn 18 or they get kicked out or whatever, they're going to run off into the sunset with these predators, because, I mean, nobody else gives a crap, and what else are they going to do anyways? Where else are they going to stay? How else are they going to eat? So, anywho, yeah, I don't know what to say about that, but they're having that moment where, like, they're looking back now and they're like, what in the world? And honestly, I would definitely say try to avoid these trauma symptoms and coping mechanisms as much as possible, because the last thing you want is to have all types of splits and soul ties, and also to have extra stuff that could have been avoided that you now look back on and regret. You want to have as little regrets as possible, and the people who fall into this cycle and addiction, they always regret it, unless they really just get really bad cognitive dissonance and never see anything wrong with it, and they repeat the cycle and also continue to be a dronophile, which most will continue to be a dronophile. regardless, but you don't want to have a lot of extra regrets.